Good afternoon, everyone. We are still reading, and will be for a while, Spiritual Treasures, Letters of Swami Turiyananda, Swami Chaitananda's translation. And we're on page 59, if you're following along, number 25. Turiyananda is at the Ramakrishna Advaita Ashram in Varanasi, 14 December 1912. Dear Sridhar, that's Swami Nirupananda, I have received your letter dated December 10th. Never cease thinking of God. Whether you get joy or not, continue your meditation daily on a regular basis. If you can practice steadfastly, you will again experience bliss. I think, obviously, he was having a little lull in his meditations and they seemed to be going nowhere. It's a common thing. The great sage Vyasa said, when there is a disorder of bile secretion, sugar does not taste good in the mouth. But if one goes on taking sugar earnestly every day, he gets cured from the bile disorder and gradually begins to enjoy the taste of sugar. Similarly, one does not taste the joy of spiritual discipline due to avidya, or ignorance. But if one keeps on doing japa and meditation daily with love and zeal, his gloom due to ignorance goes away, and the love of God emerges. Therefore, never give up spiritual practices. Rather, do them wholeheartedly. Eventually, you will derive joy from them. Why do you pay so much attention to the fruits of action? Go on doing your work. In this world, an employer pays his employees. Will not God give you anything if you work for him? Do your duty. What will you gain by complaining like this? I've not achieved anything, or I'm not making any progress. Rather, go on doing your work silently, and the result will ensue by itself. The mystic Saint Ram Prasad sang, do your work with the steadfastness of a hereditary farmer. Make the effort with all of your mind. Then you will reap a golden harvest. That is all. Patience is needed. Does a seed bear fruit as soon as it has been sown? Have patience. One reaps the harvest after so many ordeals, protecting the seeds, watering, weeding, saving them from pests, putting up fences to keep out goats and cattle, and so on. What more shall I say? Your well-wisher, Turiyananda. I'll interrupt here for one little thing. I was asking a farmer at the farmer's market, and I said, you must work so hard. And he looked at me with this big smile on his face. He said, I've never worked a day in my life. He said, I love what I do. And if we all could have that attitude, do everything like that. It's not work. It's not tiresome. Okay, number 26. He's still in Varanasi. 29th December 1912. Dear Sridhar, I have received your letter of December 22nd. It is avidya, or ignorance, which is the field of lust and anger. Patanjali defines avidya as follows: to regard the non-eternal as eternal, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-Atman as the Atman. This is ignorance. In other words, it is ignorance which makes one perceive the unreal world as real, the impure body as pure, happiness as painful, happiness in painful sense enjoyments, and to consider life and children, none of whom is really one's own, as one's own. These false perceptions are caused by ignorance. This avidya is without beginning. There is no way of ascertaining when it originated. It is also without end, in the sense that until one attains illumination, By the grace of God, it remains and is not destroyed. This ignorance does not allow us to move towards God. So Krishna said in the Gita, "Those who take refuge in me alone shall cross over this Maya." Our duty is to take refuge in him and lead a God-centered life. What Swami Vivekananda said is true. Devotion to God is dormant in everyone. It manifests itself when the veil of lust and gold is removed. The attempt to remove that veil is called sadhana, or spiritual disciplines. And when this veil disappears, the kundalini awakens. Nothing will be achieved if you scatter your mind in all sorts of things. Hold on firmly to your chosen path and resolve that you will attain liberation and devotion through it. Then only will you succeed. I have told you again and again, yet you won't listen. Now what can I do? You do as you please. That, when it comes from your guru, is the kiss of death. You do what you please. You have the choice to select your guru and follow the methods of sadhana. Please don't ask any more questions in this matter. I wrote to you more than once. He who is full of faith and zeal and has subdued his senses obtains knowledge. Having obtained knowledge, he soon attains the supreme peace. From the Gita. But the man who is ignorant and without faith and always doubting goes to ruin. Not this world nor the world beyond, nor happiness is for the doubting soul. Also from the Gita. These are the words of God. Now, do as you please. With love and best wishes, Turiyananda. 27 Varanasi. Dear Sri, I see human beings as generally very selfish. They expect that everything should be done for them, and they are unwilling to exert themselves, especially with regard to spiritual matters. Everyone wishes to be perfect instantly, but who is ready to work for it? They do not realize how many bad impressions from their previous lives have accumulated in their minds, which, like a veil, do not allow them to see their own self. If one can remove those impressions by hard labor, only then does knowledge or devotion manifest. Your well-wisher, Turiyananda. You can almost tell what questions they've asked from his answers in his letters. Number 28, Ramakrishna Advaita Ashram, Varanasi, 20 February 1913. Dear Suresh, Swami Turiyananda, I have received your letter of February 9. Man is merely an instrument, and the Lord is the operator. Blessed is he through whom the Lord gets his work done. Everyone has to work in this world. No one can escape from it. But he who works for his own selfish ends, his work, instead of liberating him from the trap of Maya, binds him. On the other hand, the wise man, working for the Lord, cuts the fetters of work. Not I, but the Lord is the doer. This knowledge severs the bonds. This is a gospel truth. The notion that I am the doer is merely a delusion, because it is difficult to trace who this I is. If one carefully analyzes this I, the real I dissolves in God. Our identification with the body, mind, intellect, and so on is simply a delusion created by ignorance. Do they last long? Discrimination puts an end to all of them. They all vanish, and there only remains the one reality, from whom everything evolves, in whom all rest, and wherein they merge at the end. That reality is the existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, or Brahman. The witness of the ego consciousness, and again, it is the omnipresent Lord who is creating, preserving, and dissolving the universe, and is yet untouched by it all. The world machine is based on God and functions through his power. The playful Lord enjoys watching this play. One only knows whom the Lord makes to understand. Others cannot understand it, even though they hear it. They get deluded and think themselves separate from God. This is his Maya. This Maya vanishes if one works while surrendering himself to the Lord. The doer then realizes that he is not the doer, but only an instrument. This is what is called inaction in action. This is realizing oneself not doing anything. This is Jeevan Mukti, or liberation in life. The Atman assumes a human form in order to enjoy the bliss of liberation while living in the body. Otherwise, it is unreasonable for the ever-free Atman to be born merely to desire worldly enjoyments. The supreme goal of human life is to experience the state of bodilessness while still in the body. Attaining this, a person finds fulfillment in his life. I sincerely pray to the Master that we may taste the bliss of Jeevan Mukti in this life by his grace. May this life be our last birth. In other words, may we not have to be born again for selfish reasons. May we live only for him and for nothing else. Let this conviction, faith, and experience be deep-rooted in our lives. May the Master be propitious unto us. With love to yourself and all, Turiyananda. Number 29, Konkal, 14 May, 1913. Dear Suresh, Swami Turiyananda again, I was glad to receive your letter on May 6. Let a man be lifted up by his own self. Let him not lower himself, for he himself is his friend, and he himself is his enemy. Gita chapter 6. Please remind your friend S. Father, mother, wife, son, relatives. None of these stays to help you in the hereafter. Only Dharma, righteousness remains. Let him realize it fully. The Lord is your only helper. Don't worry. All troubles will pass away. Be firm and devoted to the Master. There's nothing to be afraid of. With best wishes, Turiyananda. Ramakrishna Sevashram Konkal, 23 May 1913. Dear S., I was glad to receive your letter of May 17. After coming to Konkal from Varanasi, I feel a little better, but I don't think there has been any abatement of the disease itself. Whatever is to happen to us has happened. Now I sincerely wish that you all arise and be blessed in doing the Divine Mother's work. One should lead life for one's own liberation and for the good of humanity. That's the motto of the Ramakrishna order. Let this message of Swamiji be fulfilled in your life. I'm glad to know that your mind is now much better and firm in determination. This is what is wanted. Is there anything greater than giving up one's life for a great ideal? When death is certain, it is better to sacrifice life for a noble cause. The Upanishad, chapter 3. Will such teachings be confined to the study of books? Will you not translate them into your life? You did right. Most, and this is in parentheses, most probably S joined the monastery. After listening and learning everything, if you had not acted as you did, all of your knowledge would have turned into ignorance. Never allow any weakness to come near you. Hold the ideal of the Master and Swamiji in front of you, and then move forward without fear. Don't worry. The Divine Mother herself will protect you. If you reflect a little, you will realize that she has always been protecting you. If she had not held and protected you, could you have remained unscathed all this time? Never. The Divine Mother herself has cleared the path for you, and then has drawn you to herself. So why should you have any fear? Now intensify your relationship with her. First realize, I have severed all connections with the world. Then the Mother herself will graciously show you that nothing exists but she. The same Rama sports in every being. Mother dwells in everything. Mother will reveal to you. Brahmamayi, or the Divine Mother, pervades everywhere, and the Ganga, Gaya, and Kashi are at her feet. When you have had this experience, you have reached the highest. At that time, the ego sense disappears, and one realizes everything is Mother. Now, as you have said, you will have to find joy by associating with the devotees of God, who will lead you towards Him. Stay away from those who will take you away from God. Now all relationships are through the Mother and through none else. Now try to experience this by all means. In my heart I have known this truth. I belong to the Mother, and the Mother is mine. To achieve this, you should be ready to pluck out your heart with your own hand if necessary. You are an intelligent person. What more shall I say? Your well-wisher, Turiyananda. Number 31, Konkal, 25 Bhadra, which is August 1913. Dear X, I have received your letter dated 18 Bhadra, August 1913. You have asked me to write about the quintessence of the Gita. Perhaps you are aware of what Ramakrishna has said about the Gita. The Master used to say, if one repeats the word Gita a few times, he will comprehend its meaning. In other words, when you repeat Gita, 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 it sounds like Tagi, 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 which means one who has renounced. So the quintessence of the Gita is renunciation. In fact, after studying the Gita, one understands that offer everything to God is the central teaching of the Gita. Some say that the message of the Gita is perform swadharma, one's duties, in the spirit of non-attachment and offer the fruits of action to God. I say that if one can do this, what more does one need? The Lord Himself said in the Gita, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer in sacrifice, whatever you give away, and whatever you practice in the form of austerities, O son of Kunti, do it as an offering to me. 9th chapter. In other words, don't keep anything for yourself. But is this an easy task? One has to make a tremendous effort. It does not happen by itself. But there is no need to be discouraged. The Lord said, becoming perfect through many births, a yogi reaches the supreme goal. Gita again. If the goal is not attained in this birth, it will be attained in the next. Only we must not forget the goal. The practice should be continued, and one day success is bound to come. In his last life, a man will be born endowed with divine qualities, Daivi Sampat. All of his samskaras, inner tendencies, will be good, and he will definitely realize God. The sum and substance of the Gita, according to my view, is surrender oneself to God and completely efface the ego. to belong entirely to God and not to depend in the least on oneself or anyone else. This indeed is the main teaching of the Gita. In whatever way one accomplishes this, one's life becomes fulfilled. God is very compassionate. If we can depend on him, he will do whatever is necessary for us. Krishna promises in the Gita, my devotee never perishes. There is another pithy teaching of the Gita. No evil, my son, befalls a man who does good. With love and best wishes, Turiyananda. (32). And we're talking to the same devotee, I think. Konkal, 27 September 1913. Dear X, I have received your letter of 4 Ashwin, September 1913. I am glad to hear that you have enjoyed my comments on the Gita. The import of the verse 9:27, whatever you do or eat, and so on, which you have written, is correct. The idea is to think of oneself as an instrument of, and God as the doer. There is another idea. He has become everything, and he plays all these games while residing in every being. Like this, there can be so many interpretations. All of these attitudes demand the cessation of this puny I. Know for certain that this petty ego is the root of all troubles and ignorance. Self-surrender means to practice contentment by thinking that wherever the Lord keeps me is for my good, to unify one's will with the will of God, and to practice even-mindedness in happiness and misery, gain and loss, and so on. In other words, one can surrender oneself completely only after liberation. Before that, one will have to practice yoga repeatedly. Real resignation to God is liberation. If a person practices this attitude of resignation sincerely and wholeheartedly, he attains liberation by God's grace. You have mentioned renunciation. In this context, the Master used to say, a housewife at first does all sorts of toilsome work, but when she becomes pregnant, her mother-in-law gradually curtails her work and does not allow her to do very much. At last, when she brings forth a baby, she is released from all work. Her only work then is to stay with the baby and nurse him, and the happiness of the baby becomes her happiness. Now, pregnancy means to install God in one's heart, and giving birth to a child means God realization. There is another attitude. Stay at the door of the Lord and wait for his grace. If you are sincere, divine grace will be bestowed on you. The Master explained it through the parable of the kitten. It neither desires something different nor attempts to do anything on its own. Wherever its mother keeps it, it remains there. To have perfection in any one of these sadhanas, that is the only thing needed. The Lord is omniscient. He knows each and all. As your faith, so is your attainment. With love, Turiyananda. Now, the next letter is a very short one. Well, maybe two short ones, both to X. Konkal, 1 November 1913. Dear X, I am glad to know that you have benefited immensely from my letters, and so I consider my labors fruitful. In the realm of religion, Shraddha, or faith alone, is the cause of well-being. In the Gita, the Lord says, he who is full of faith obtains knowledge. Chapter 4. In the Katu Upanishad, we find that when faith dawned in Nachiketa's mind, he realized the truth. In the Yoga scriptures also, we find great praise for faith. There's a well-known saying, as one's disposition, so one's fulfillment. Remember that your faith is the cause of your spiritual growth. Try to practice constant recollectedness of God and pray to Him wholeheartedly so that your mind dwells on Him. Then He will bestow grace on you. Happiness and misery are inevitable in life. Life will be fruitful if we have devotion to God. Otherwise, it is mere suffering. Yours, Turiyananda. Okay. We'll read one more. Number 34, Dehradun, 14 April 1914. Dear X, I'm sorry to hear that your health is not good. You are having treatments, but with no result. That is quite a matter of frustration. However, you should continue your sadhana, whether the body is ill or well. Let there be no forgetfulness or negligence in repeating the Lord's name. The Master used to say, let the affliction and the body take care of themselves. O my mind, you dwell in bliss. Don't fail to remember the blissful Lord. He who thinks that he will call on God once he has good health will never make it. The great sage Vyasa said, he who wishes to think of God after solving the problems of his life is like a fool who wishes to have a bath in the ocean when the waves have subsided. The waves of the ocean will never subside. He alone will have his bath who can plunge into the stormy ocean. Similarly, he who can practice sadhana in the midst of happiness and unhappiness, sickness and grief, pain and poverty, he attains perfection. On the contrary, he who thinks that when the favorable opportunities come, he will practice sadhana, will not be able to make it. Very few people in this world are fortunate enough to get completely favorable conditions. Disease, grief, pain, and anxiety are constant companions in human life. Call on God in whatever circumstances you are. Otherwise, it is extremely difficult to make any progress in spiritual life. With best wishes, Turiyananda. And I think we'll stop there today. And, yeah, we will stop there today. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Okay. For my mind, Turiyananda can say it more clearly than I could ever hope to say anything like that. Our announcements for today are, we will have Swami Sarvadevananda here this weekend. So Saturday, instead of the gospel reading, we'll have the Bhagavad Gita class at 5 o'clock here in the temple on Zoom and YouTube. And his topic for his lecture is the big picture. And I hope you can all come. And I hope everyone's keeping well. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Parnamastu.